What happens when a story gets too focused on the future that it doesn't take time to enjoy the present? Well, it gets trapped in a doomsday scenario. What's up guys, my name's Hayden. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman. This is book 2 in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. Now before I get started, I just have a couple questions for you. Have you ever been in a public restroom when the toilet backed up and there was no plunger in sight?
God, I beg you, please.
Or has your wife ever, while trying on clothes, asked you the age-old question, does this make me look fat?
Do these earrings make me look fat?
If you answered yes to either of those questions, then you, my friends, have found yourself trapped at some point in time in a doomsday scenario. What do you do when you find yourself in said scenarios? Well, it's important to remind yourself to pause, breathe, and think. Don't worry, just keep going. You will get out of it eventually. That's what I had to tell myself while I was reading this book. Now, I'm not going to say that this book was terrible. I think it was okay. But coming from the high of the first Dungeon Crawler Carl book to this one, it was not that great.
Good, not great.
The expectations, having read that first book for this one, were so high that I was severely let down by this book. Not to say this book is terrible in any way. In fact, I believe most people enjoy this book more than the first one based off the Goodreads score. That being said, this book has a major problem in that it is a setup book.
You set me up. Impressive.
I equate it to the MCU. When I saw the first Avengers movie, I was blown away by it. I loved it so much. So, when Avengers Age of Ultron was coming out, my expectations were sky high. That ultimately, when I left the theater, I was a little disappointed. Now, that being said, I don't think Age of Ultron is a terrible movie, but it took some time and some distance away from Age of Ultron before I actually started to appreciate it. Why? Because that movie is a setup movie. And in the current time I was watching that movie, the plot was so convoluted with setting up future installments that I was unable to enjoy the current movie I was watching. That's what it was like with Carl's Doomsday Scenario. In Avengers Age of Ultron, it is setting up multiple things like Tony's vision of the heroes being dead, Thor's discovery of the Infinity Stones, the rising tension between Captain America and Iron Man, the inevitable isolation of Hulk, also the destruction of Sokovia, which ultimately led to the Sokovia Accords, and the most important one, Captain America being able to potentially lift Thor's hammer. All of those scenarios get set up in Avengers Age of Ultron, and over time, they have some of the best payoffs in future installments, that being in Captain America Civil War, Thor Ragnarok, and Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. That being said, we wouldn't have the great payoffs that Age of Ultron set up, but it was at the expense of my personal enjoyment of the individual film Age of Ultron. That was my problem with this book, is that it was so focused on setting up future things in the series that it took away my enjoyment of this book right here. Now, this book does some things right. It introduces quests, which I thought were pretty interesting. However, it took way too long to get to the main quest, which really was the primary plot of this book, if you could say that. There was an initial quest, which at first I thought was going to be the main plot, but then it wrapped up and was like, we're going to just set this up for future levels later on. And then I was like, oh, okay, so that was just a little aside thing. And there's many other instances like that in this book where there was not really any resolution of several things, but basically just saying, we're going to put a pin in that and we'll come back to that later.
Let's put a pin in that.
And this book wasn't as quite a page turner because of that. Whereas the first book, there's constantly something happening. You don't know what's going to be around every corner. And there's just several oh crap moments that you're like, oh, I don't know how they're going to get out of this. And honestly, I can really only think about maybe of 2 oh crap moments, one of which didn't happen until like 250 pages in.
Oh, poop.
And that was a problem for me because, like I mentioned earlier, it took so long getting to that oh crap moment because we were caught up in this initial quest that was like, oh yeah, this is just to set up future things. Now let's get to the rest of the book. And we took too long to get to the main plot of this story, in my opinion.
That's just like your opinion, man.
Now, this book has another problem, which I never thought was going to be until the story progressed, and that was Mordecai. I was excited to see Mordecai being more involved in this book initially because I thought, awesome, we're going to get more from him in future books too. But as the story progressed, I realized Mordecai ended up just calling all the shots. Instead of the characters, Carl and Princess Donut, discovering things and trying to figure out the hard way how to get out of things, which in my opinion is more enjoyable for the reader, it just ended up being Carl being like, hey, Mordecai, we just came across this and this. What do we do? And Mordecai just told him what to do. Now, there were some instances of Carl ignoring him and not listening to that, and that's where some of the more exciting things happen in this book. But it really just ended up being Mordecai kind of being like, okay, do this, and do that. While that might be great for the characters, it wasn't great for the reader. While I do want to see more of Mordecai, I just hope that it's written a little bit better where he is not as much of a crutch and that he is, while beneficial to them as a team, that Carl and Princess Donut don't heavily rely upon him for every little tiny thing. I like to see Carl and Princess Donut struggle a little bit so that way I can feel like they earned their victories rather than everything just being given to Mordecai as the reason why they succeeded instead of themselves. And all the things I loved about the first book was the political stuff behind the scenes, which is virtually non-existent in this book except for one major moment, which I won't say what it was. I did like that, but again, it's just not really present here. I had to keep telling myself, okay, maybe this will start to pick up. Maybe there will be something else that will get resolved in this book. And it just never really came. Even to the point that the main title, Carl's Doomsday Scenario, doesn't even happen until the final moments of this book. And not saying that the title of the books always have to be like up front and center, but I thought it would have to deal more where it was going to introduce the concept closer to the beginning rather than waiting towards the final moments where I'm just like, why is this book called Carl's Doomsday Scenario again?
Come on, it's in the name.
Even the Doomsday Scenario itself is yet again another setup. Regarding the Doomsday Scenario setup, I actually have a theory or a prediction that just in the way Age of Ultron had setups that had some of the biggest payoffs in future installments, I can't help but think the whole purpose of this book was all set up for this title to be utilized in a further installment that is vitally important to the series. Now, whether or not that happens in the next couple books or not, I would go so far as to say it will happen probably in like the ultimate moment in maybe even the final book. Now, whether or not that's happened, please don't reveal that in the comments. I don't want to know. But I see that being very important to the series. And so when that moment happens, and I've given myself some time from this book, I will appreciate this book more, just like I did with Age of Ultron. I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but honestly, there just did not feel like a whole lot of story progression in this, especially even with the characters Carl and Princess Donut. Except for one moment with Carl, which dealt with a flashback, which I actually was like, wow, it gave me some more insight into him and his past as a character. I want more of that. Because he gave me that one little bit, I was like, where's the rest of that? I want more of that. But that being said, there just was very little story progression, in my opinion, and it was just mostly all setup. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to quit reading the series, because obviously I've already bought all of them. But the main reason being because I've noticed too, this is the smallest book in the series, and not saying that bigger is better, although sometimes it is. I mean, look at me.
And bigger is better.
But I will say that again gives me more validation that of this being a setup book. It was like he was like, okay, I have this idea that will potentially pay off in future books, but I need to just write a little aside for it. So let's not give too much time into this book so I can just set up future books and have more time with those. Now, I will say the book was not a terrible book. I just was severely disappointed coming from the high that was Dungeon Crawler Carl. And I'm hoping that by the third book, things will turn around and it'll be a little more enjoyable and I can get a little more character work and have some payoffs in the current story that I'm reading rather than hardly any at all. And what does happen at the end of the book actually does make me excited to read on and see what's going to happen more, because in my opinion, it puts more of a target on Carl's back that is not just from within the game, but from outside of the game as well. And I'm excited to see how that will produce more conflict for our characters going forward. And let me put an aside in here, the bonus book, Backstage of the Pineapple Cabaret, which, by the way, you can only get in physical copies, so I would recommend buying the physical copy, not the digital. But the bonus book also makes me question if what I thought was happening in the bonus book at the end of book 1 is really what's happening. It makes me question if this is just more set up for the game itself, that it's not what I initially thought, which was like systematic stuff that's not supposed to happen. But I don't know. So I don't know if it's orchestrated or if it's game breaking, if that makes sense to you. I'm hoping that the next bonus book reveals a little more, and we'll just have to see about that. With all that being said, even though I wasn't too big a fan of this book, there was still several enjoyable moments in it, and it was enough for me to still continue in the series, mostly because I want to jump on the next one, because I don't want to have this leave too much of a negative impact for me on the series as a whole, and I'm hoping it turns around quickly. But, you know, maybe I'm just the exception, because based off the Goodreads score alone, a lot of people seem to like this. With that all in mind, let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with me? Was this one not as good for you? Or do you think I'm completely wrong? Let me know in the comment section below. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I want to have that engagement with you guys and have that conversation back and forth on what we liked and disliked over the book. Also, give this video a like if you don't mind. And go ahead and subscribe, because I want you to not miss out on all my reviews for the books I haven't read yet. I plan on reviewing all of them before May when the final book comes out. So if you get a chance, go ahead and do that. And check out my review videos on the book and movie for Project Hail Mary. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.